Hey everyone, I'm Tassinix, and welcome to my update of my original Grand Arena Omicron tier list video. I put out version 1 back in November of 2024 here, more than half a year ago. And at least for the last few months, you guys have been clamoring for an update to this, which makes sense. The Grand Arena Omicron list has grown considerably last time. A lot of these have moved up and down, so completely makes sense. Before we dig into this, a couple notes. First, quick shout out to Dagger, who was instrumental, as he was last time, in helping me sort out where I wanted to rank all these Omicrons. So, really appreciate that help, man. And if you don't already know Dagger, he's sometimes a guest on my stream when I have a dud round. He's also a co-host on my podcast, Plotting and Scheming. So, good dude. Really appreciate the help. Next is how we went about preparing this list. So, all of these Omicrons are ranked in tiers, of course, and within the tier, you're meant to read best to worst going left to right. We did take into consideration how to rank a 3 versus 3 or 5 versus 5 only Omicron relative to an Omicron that would be active full time. So, we did our best to rank that where we thought it was going to produce the best value. And yeah, if you disagree, feel free to debate us in the comments, because I think a lot of that is negotiable, but we did our best. Aside from that, everything else is considered to be equal in terms of you've got all these characters and all the relics are equal. You know, if you're in the mid game and you don't have access to some of these characters, then some of the Omicrons that you see in the middle or lower tiers on this chart, may be better value for you. So don't let me tell you you're wrong if you're not able to access a lot of these characters, All right, so getting started here as far as how we define the categories themselves. S tier is indispensable, must see TV, don't leave home without them. If you don't have them, get them. Right? A tier means transformative Omicrons. These make a team capable of defeating or resisting teams that they could not otherwise. B tier are elevating Omicrons. They make a mediocre team viable or competitive and can give a possible punch up opportunity or can make a good team reach their full potential. C tier Omicrons are okay. They're decent value and or only situationally useful. And then D tier, of course, is poor. They're rarely, if ever, useful. So let's go ahead and get into these. S tier. So yeah, the first couple of these are unchanged. They remain at the top. First is Darth Bane's Rule of Two. Man, Bane just continues to be a killer. They keep having to introduce new challenges in the Datacron meta just to make something that you can't just kind of look at and say, I bet Bane could kill that. So it's up there, man. Next one is Star Killers. There is much conflict in you. Unique. Starkiller remains a incredibly useful tool in Grand Arena. Of course, you can make use of them against galactic legends like Rey. In more recent Datacron metas, I've been able to take on the new Lord Vader clones team, like in 3 versus 3, stuff like that. So this Omicron is able to punch above its weight for what the team is. And yeah, it just remains one of the most powerful single Omicrons you could apply. Next is Echo of the Fallen Order. Yeah, this is one of Malicos's uniques, and he's just one of the best characters in the game. Principally, what makes this one so valuable is that this is his savior unique. So if you try to kill any of his allies, when you attempt to reduce that ally below 1% health for the first time, if Malicos is alive, they're going to recover 100% health and protection. All this stuff happens. Like it's Dark Savior, right? But it's for a whole team, like Jedi Knight Revan comparatively. And he just saves one Jedi, right? So super powerful. All right. Next is, yes, Dark Ray's Malevolent Lineage. This is her true damage lightning. Incredibly powerful ability. Relatively recent character. And yeah, shock can't be dispelled or resisted, so this is an AoE shock. Enemies defeated by this ability can't be revived. Remove 100% turn meter from all characters. All this stuff. And as we'll see from other Omicrons, this ability can be reset. Really top tier ability. Next up is Savage's Brute. Yeah, this one still maintains its position pretty high on the list. Treya and Savage in combination remains a top tier team in Grand Arena on offense or defense. You can really do a lot with it. So, still producing high value. When considering against Treya, I mean, Savage's unique is a bit more flexible. You could use this technically with Malgus, with Sith Eternal, so on and so forth. You could use it as part of a Star Killer team if you were so inclined. But yeah, I mean, this really does the most for a bunch of Sith allies. So, to be fair, most of the time with Treya. All right, next up is Reva's, third sister's Harbored Aggression ability. And yeah, this is her leadership, which allows you to inflict death mark. Well, technically speaking, when enemies do dispels on any allies, they inflict themselves with death mark. That's how it works. So this is what allows Reva to punch up into teams like JMK, because you can force his sides, when they cleanse their allies to death mark themselves, you focus them down, you win the fight. Next is Darth Malgus's Legacy of Power. It's a transformative, amazing leadership. It's just a million stats. It's immunization to a bunch of effects. It just does a lot. See here, yeah. They have plus 50% mastery, 30 speed, 80% crit avoidance, damage reduced for everybody by 15%, recovering health and protection, just more stats for Malgus as well here at the end. So it's this last little clause at the start of battle, Darth Malgus recovers 100% health and protection. That last little bit there alone prevents you from kind of whittling him down in Grand Arena, right? All right. Next one is Strength is Power. Back to Malicos, folks. This is, again, what makes him one of just the best characters in the game. This is one of his stacking offense things, right? Well, yeah, at the start of battle, first he has plus 100% max health and 50% mastery. A whole bunch of other stuff in here, but where is it? Well, this isn't where the stacking is tucked. What it does say, though, is that he assists whenever any unaligned force user ally uses a special. So this helps him contribute to ramping his damage. And then you also get, nice crit hit immunity, good stuff. All right. Next is Loyal Handmaiden from Queen Amidala. Queen Amidala's stock continues to rise. You could use her from some time ago now to counter teams like Galactic Legend Rey, but now we're seeing other stuff. This team is capable with some Datacron help, which means that it might only be seasonally super powerful, but we're punching up into teams at or better than Galactic Legend Rey at this time. So it is a big deal that you get the free summon at start, sets them up for success. That means when Queen uses her third ability on her first turn, all the allies go under stealth. So it just complicates affairs when you have that free decoy at the start of battle. And the decoy has a lot of passive abilities that make things rough for enemies that hit it. All right, next is Darth Bane's Essence of Dominance. What can you say to make it sound better that it's an AoE unavoidable two-round cooldown increase? It goes from 1 to 2, not from 0 to 2, from 1 to 2. So it's only +1 from the Omicron, but it's really serious business. What other effects are tucked? Yeah, remove 50% turn meter from all enemies, and Sith allies gain 50% turn meter. Reduce all enemies' defense and tenacity by 20% stacking, which can't be resisted until the end of battle. So in practical terms, you'll get like 2 or 3 uses of this off in a lot of fights. If you're taking on a high-level fight versus a GL, doing this a bunch. So yeah, this can keep on going, and there's nothing that says that this stacking defense can't apply to GLs, so you get the idea. It can do a lot. All right, and then last in the tier, but still worthy of being S tier, is Darth Treya's Lord of Betrayal. In combination with Savage, it is really just one of the best pairings in the game. So many stats. You have like the unique from Darth Talon mixed in as well. It's just a million stats. So yeah, Sith allies gain 40% crit damage, max health, and offense. This is just great for Savage and Talon, for sure. Then you get all the bonus protection for herself. This is what allows her to take an inordinate amount of damage when she's getting focused. All Sith, at the start of each Sith ally's turn, Traya dispels all debuffs from them, and all Sith allies gain 5% crit damage, health steal, max health, and offense, stacking up to a max of 100% until the end of the encounter. When allied Talon, so when her allied Darth Talon, Darth Sion, and Darth Nihilus get hit, there's effects. When allied Darth Nihilus, Darth Sion, or Darth Talon's health falls below 90% for the first time, their cooldowns are reset. So if you're doing something trying to lock Darth Nihilus down and push his cooldowns back, you better not push his health under 90%. There are some Datacron metas where this can set him up for an instant bonus turn, and then you've got a real problem on it. So yeah, they actually buffed that unique not too long ago, adding that last little clause. And it's a killer. It's a killer ability. All right, so that covers S tier. Now, back into A tier, aka the transformative tier. First up is Force Dyad. That's for Ben Solo. And yeah, this is the one that says he's coming back. And, until he's dead, Rey can't die type of thing. I know that the Omicron doesn't add all of that. If the enemy in the leader slot begins their turn with Ben Solo defeated, and Ben still has an active ally, he revives with 51% health, and all allies gain instant defeat immunity for the rest of the encounter, which can't be copied, dispelled, or prevented. So, yeah, this especially gives resistance to stuff like the Jabba counter to Rey, right? You have to be very careful about not actually blowing somebody up before at least the key character that needs to be eaten. If you accidentally blow up any, if you blow up Ben specifically, so you have to avoid Ben, because if you manage to kill him for any reason, you're not going to be able to eat any of the allies. No instant defeats from that point forward for anybody who's around. So dangerous stuff. All right, next up from there is Temple Guard's Patience is a Virtue. It's really just an incredible ability. There's not too much that can't be said about what it does. It's a ton of stats. It's also the captive effect, right? It's only the second character in the game to introduce that. So yeah, while in Grand Arenas and there are no allied Galactic Legends, Galactic Republic Jedi gain plus 50% defense, offense, and potency. If all allies are Jedi Vanguard, these values are doubled. At the start of battle, if all allies are Galactic Republic Jedi, Temple Guard gains crit avoidance up for 2 turns and inflicts captive on the weakest enemy, which can't be copied, dispelled, prevented, or resisted until the end of Temple Guard's second turn. Which is why, a lot of folks have it modded for very, very little, if any, speed, so that you maximize the length that that enemy is captured. This is an incredible value, Omicron. Definitely one of the best. All right, next up after that is Rekindle from Seer. So yeah, this one used to be in the S tier, and really, it's still extremely good, but maybe not as critical to have as some of those ones that you see up there in S. So it's still high up. It gives a lot to her allies. It increases, I think it triples the amount of stats that you get, right? It's like 5% base and then another 10% on top of it in terms of the crit chance, crit damage, offense, all that ramping. There's a couple other effects baked into that make it just killer leadership, especially if you're going to commit Malicos to the team, because he benefits strongly from everything she's doing. Next up is Exile Ezra's unique, Exile. So yeah, when I made this list originally, Exile Ezra was out, but we didn't actually have Galactic Legend Ahsoka Tano's kit, so I really didn't know how to properly rank that. Now that we've had her for a few months, it's clear that this ability feeds a ton of mastery into a team that's already trying to wildly ramp mastery. And then 30 speed besides when they're all losing Exile for the first time. Just an incredible value ability for him being under Galactic Legend Ahsoka Tano. It's not as good if it's you're just, using Exile as a plugin with Ray or somewhere else. So that's the caveat there. It's really going to do its job best under Galactic Legend Ahsoka Tano. All right, next up is Dark Ray's Don't Be Afraid of Who You Are. Yeah, man. I just love this character's kit. For such a throwaway appearance, they really made something fun here. So this Omicron says, all other First Order allies with Retaliate recover protection at the end of the turn equal to 100% of the damage received. First Order allies with advantage ignore taunt effects on their turn. So, if you're running this team with Hux, as you normally would be in 5 vs 5, he's handing out a free advantage to the team. I want to say Slacker's lead also does that, but I also, his swipe is going to put advantage back up on everybody. The point is that advantage is pretty common on that First Order team. So that means most of the time you're going to be able to ignore taunt. So that's a big value in itself. And then it says, if the ally in the leader slot is Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, whenever he enters aggressive stance, so his ultimate, the cooldown of Malevolent Lineage is reset. This is really interesting because we already talked about Malevolent Lineage. That's an incredible ability. So it's going to be reset whenever Slacker goes into his ultimate. If you're placing this team on defense, a lot of the time, Slacker is going to get that first ultimate charge and then get his next turn before he builds up to that second or third stack of charge. So the AI is going to pop that ability and send him into ultimate. You might think, that's pretty poor value for his ultimate, but you're kind of getting compensated here because assuredly she would have used Malevolent Lineage already before he's ending up using one charge of ultimate. And then it's getting reset, and then she's throwing out AoE true damage like a boss again. So really powerful skill. Next one is Luthen's Dreams with Ghosts. This is the Bag of Stats. Super powerful effect that is turbocharging your Mon Mothma and Saw team. Let's take a look at that real quick. I know it's more than just the stats. So yeah, if there are no Rebel Galactic Legend allies at the start of battle, Mon Mothma and Rebel Fighter allies gain 30% max health mastery and 20 speed, and they gain bonus protection 50% for one turn. The first time the Rebel Commander is defeated in each battle, summon a Rebel Trooper and promote them to Rebel Commander. That's right. So one of the benefits of Luthen is you get that free Rebel Commander at the start. The first time he goes down for any reason, you get a free one coming back. So you're less dependent on him respawning it. You're less dependent on Mon Mothma starting you out from scratch. So this is the boosting ability that allows Mon Mothma especially to punch up into Galactic Legend matchups, things like Leia and Rey, which are, of course, Datacron dependent. All right. Let's get back here into In Our Nature. Yet another Omicron here, and the last one from Rey Darkside. So yes, this one says, while Rey is untargetable from this ability. Right, so she cannot be targeted until all of her enemies have taken one turn. So while Rey is untargetable from this ability, First Order allies can't be defeated. You can take them to one, but they're going to be chilling. All right? So everybody on your team needs to take a turn. And then when Rey takes, her turn, she'll be vulnerable thereafter. Until then, you can do whatever you want to her allies, but they're not going to die. So that's your problem. While an enemy is less than full health, they can't recover protection. Busted ability. Whenever a First Order ally is inflicted with a debuff, they lose 1% turn meter once per turn and gain 1% offense stacking for the rest of the encounter. Now you're thinking, why would it be good for my First Order allies to be losing turn meter? But when you consider, I want to say it's actually Slacker's unique. It's one of his uniques. I don't think it's his leadership. But when First Order allies have their turn meter reduced, they're gaining max health and protection. So if when you are losing turn meter, you are bulking up and gaining offense besides. You're setting yourself up for monstrous turns later on. Right? Next, we have, Die Whelp. Just the authoritative rock-throwing experience from Terran Malicos. That is... You get true damage from that. Let's see. You get deal additional true damage to all enemies and inflict buff immunity and healing immunity on target enemy for 2 turns, which can't be resisted. If the ally in the leader slot is dark side or unaligned, dark side or light side Ufu, Malicos gains 20% critical damage and offense stacking until the end of battle. So if you're judicious about how you're stacking up Edge of Madness, you're able to use this ability probably 3 or 4 times in a fight. Probably 3 for the most part. But it's just a contributor to his stacking offensive profile. You get this true damage. The buff immunity and healing immunity that cannot be resisted can be clutch, so you can decide how you want to use that. All right. Next one is Malevolent Whirlwind from Darth Bane. So this one specifically is a really good value when you are pairing him with Sith Eternal Emperor, right? You get an additional 3% ultimate charge gained against deceived or linked enemies. Bane gains an additional 5 siphon from this ability's use. So yeah, he would gain 5, and so this is doubling his siphon gain. That's great for his own sake, but this really quick ultimate charge for Sith Eternal is useful for at least one matchup, which would be the full Ahsoka Tano Exile Ezra team. That team can fly off the handle really fast. And there are other counters that aren't C-Bane, but if you were going to attempt C-Bane, you'd be pretty grateful for being able to stack up this offense and then have the discretion to transform if you want it. Now, generally with Exile Ezra there, you can't execute people, but yeah, having the quick ultimate charge feels really good as an option. And that's, I guess, for anywhere, you know, if you're going to use them against some folks try Lord Vader. There's JMK, of course, which is risky because of Smite. But yes, quick ultimate is in your favor for a number of these matchups. All right. Next one is Force Repulse from Starkiller. That one is the AoE Dispel. I really think that's the only thing it adds, right? Just the fact, like, it does a single target Dispel on its own. But this ability is really important. I think if you've been seeing the last few seasons of folks using like Seer, Malicos, Starkiller to take on Lord Vader clones in 3 versus 3, or if it's just, you know, Seer, Malicos, Starkiller +2 in 5 versus 5 versus something like Rey versus whatever, you are really happy to have this AoE Dispel on tap. Very nice stuff. All right. After that is Way of the Mandalore, the leadership from Bo-Katan. Yes, this one is powerful for a couple of reasons. Hold on. So yeah, light side Mandalorian allies gain 50% mastery, max health, and 30 speed. That's nice, but at the start of each encounter, light side Mandalorian tank allies taunt for 2 turns, so it's a nice pre-taunt. If there are other active enemies, excluding summons, the first light side Mandalorian ally that is defeated each battle is revived and recovers 50% health and protection. All light side Mandalorian allies gain an additional 1 stack of Ancestral Resolve whenever a light side Mandalorian ally deals true damage, dispels a debuff, or resists a debuff. Those are the conditions that would otherwise be stacking you for Ancestral Resolve already. So it's just going to help you ramp that health, defense, and then true damage, right? So you get these stats, you get a pre-taunt for pause, but you crucially do get a revive for the first light side Mandalorian ally that dies. Provided what? That there are other active enemies. Yeah. The point is that that's what allows BKM to take on somebody like JMK, right? You can walk into the fight knowing that Cat is going to smite one of your guys, probably Paz Vizsla, and then they come right back, and you get to pursue the fight from there. All right, next one is Baylan Skoll's leadership. It's all inevitable. This was rated higher in the previous video, but, you know, given where we are, it's found its place. I also want to say there was a super powerful Datacron meta that favored Baylan back then. But anyways, you get a whole bunch of stuff from applying this. He gets a pre-taunt for 2 turns. And then you get a whole bunch of clauses that set you up for a variety of matchups, like fighting an enemy team that has a non-galactic legend Ahsoka Tano, Mercenary allies then ignore protection. They're immune to critical hits and healing immunity. They expose all enemies and inflict them with healing immunity for a turn which can't be evaded or resisted at the start of their turns. If there are no GL enemies, whenever he taunts, he inflicts all enemies with doubt for a turn. If Balin is not taunting, whenever an enemy takes a bonus turn, they're inflicted with healing immunity for 3 turns, which can't be dispelled. Whenever an enemy gains foresight, like so many Jedi teams, they dispel it and are inflicted with buff immunity for 2 turns instead. Whenever an enemy gains inspire, so specifically a call out against Rey, reduce all enemies' evasion by 50% stacking until the end of the encounter. So that's specifically going to hurt characters that are stacking dodge from mastery gain, like RJT. And then all mercenary allies gain 80% defense stacking and 50% bonus protection stacking until the end of the encounter. So it's kind of just giving you a freebie wherever you should see Inspire occur. And then this last clause, which is generally useful. Defeated enemies can't be revived, and mercenary allies can't be instantly defeated. So all those other really conditional clauses besides, you get the pre-taunt, and you get immunity to instant defeat and permakill for all of your own guys' attacks. Really good stuff. All right, next one up is Jar Jar Binks's Muy Muy I Love You. I want to say this is the one that gives you the extra stacks on the shield generator per every 3 relic levels applied to Jar Jar. What this effectively means is you get 10 stacks, I want to say, at the start of battle on your shield generator. So a Relic 9 Jar Jar would grant another 6. That's 60% added life on your team. This means even more in 3 vs 3, where you're generally not using Gungan Bombardier with your Gungan team there, which means that you don't really have any other way to restore stacks on that shield generator. So what you get is what you get, and I'd much rather have 16 than 10. Strong skill. Next one is Reckless Sweep from Reva. This one is super powerful for the cooldown reduction for all of her allies, right? I think there's something else tucked in there. All Inquisitorious allies gain crit damage up for 2 turns and have their cooldowns reduced by 1. So the crit damage up is nice. This is a punchy team. They're already doing crits for the most part. Good to have. But the cooldown reduction is why I also like to have her very late in the initial turn order of the team. That means everybody else is generally taken 1, possibly even 2 turns before she gets to this. And then I'm just driving all their cooldowns back into them. It just accelerates the whole team. All right. Last in the tier is, Big Boomas. So this is the one from Jar Jar on his special 1. And yeah, it says dispel bonus protection and protection up on all enemies. And they lose 5% max health and max protection stacking, which can't be evaded for the rest of the encounter. That's kind of nice. That's just kind of nice by itself. But, excuse me. Where is that? Where did it start? I lost my sentence. Be evaded for the rest of the encounter, comma. Then inflict the target enemy with protection disruption for 1 turn. All right. So the protection disruption can be nice. If you're picking on one target, they're actually high prot. You do that, you're just going to blow them out. Okay? Plasma residue can't be resisted. That's the effect applied here where the character, I think that applies all enemies is what this attempts to apply it to. So this character loses 100% evasion. If this character becomes inflicted with shock, deal reduced massive damage to all enemies with plasma residue. Then remove all instances of plasma residue. So I want to say that it's like Tarpal's Basic that inflicts shock. You can just set that up and exploit it, right? All right, and then whenever this ability is used, reduce the cooldown of all other Gungan ally abilities by 1. So there's a couple ways that cooldowns can be reduced on this team. There's turn meter flying around, there's bonus turns flying around, so you have pretty decent chance of being able to use this ability 3-4 times, just pushing momentum into your team. All right, that wraps up the B tier. Wait, was that the B tier? No, that was just the A tier. Oh my gosh. All right, into the B tier we go. First up, at the top of the list is Balin Skull's Power, such as you've never dreamed. Amazing skill. Love the animation they pulled off. All right. While in Grand Arenas, enemies who resist stun from this ability lose 100% turn meter instead, which can't be evaded or resisted. So yeah, it will attempt to stun the entire enemy team first. And if you're not going to be stunned, you're going to lose 100% turn meter. And that is just going to happen. You also inflict armor shred on all enemies until the end of battle. Whenever this ability is used, all mercenary allies gain 10 speed, stacking maximum of 100 until the end of battle, and this effect persists through defeat. Realistically, you'll probably get to use this twice in most battles, maybe 3 times. But yeah, I like these no lose conditions, right? Because you could always have your AoE stun resisted, and then what? Nothing. But with this Omicron, you get something anyway. Like Denzel, you're leaving with something. All right, next up is Queen Amidala's I Am Queen Amidala. Yes, this is her first special. Take a look at that. I want to say that's your cooldown increase. So while in Grand Arenas and there are no Galactic Legend allies, this attack ignores enemy protection and all allies gain crit damage up and 4 stacks of heal over time and protection over time for 2 turns. All enemies are inflicted with a stack of damage over time for each Galactic Republic ally for 2 turns, which can't be resisted, speed down for 2 turns, which can't be resisted, vulnerable for 2 turns, which can't be copied, dispelled, or resisted, and have their cooldowns increased by 1, which can't be resisted. If there is an active ally handmaiden decoy, these effects can't be evaded. So yeah, most of the time you're going to have your decoy up, and because we rank that unique Omicron for her loyal bodyguard, for her summon to be available at battle start for free, you don't have to use her first turn to summon it. You can use this ability on her first turn and set up this unevadable condition. And it's quite a bit, right? Because sneakily, you might not see that these 4 stacks of heal over time, protection over time, help her Queen's Protection unique mature. And I think that gives out just amazing stats, including speed to her allies. It's just contributing to her own ramp. Powerful. All right. Next up is Saw Gerrera's Freedom Isn't Free. Yes, it's a transformative one. It's tough to put this one in B tier. I really wanted to put it up in A, but it isn't quite as good as the ones in A. Trust me, I used to have it rated higher, but I had to negotiate it down to make it all make sense. While in Grand Arenas, an all allies or rebel fighter at the start of battle Saw gains 30% max health. Whenever Saw uses Set Explosive Trap, he takes a bonus turn and increases the cooldowns of all enemies by 1. At the start of each ally's turn, inflict defense down on the weakest enemy until the end of that turn, which can't be resisted. And if an enemy has a taunt effect and explosive trap has detonated, inflict marked on the weakest enemy until the end of that turn, which can't be evaded or resisted. Whenever an ally uses a special ability during their turn, they call themselves to assist. Whenever a buff expires, gain 3 stacks of heal over time for 1 turn. While Saw is alive, limit once per ally until the start of Saw's next turn, excludes other revived allies. It's just a ton. It's also kind of what sets you up with a really difficult momentum for your opponents to overcome. You're setting this trap on them, then you're increasing all their cooldowns by 1, and then they're saying, yes, now go ahead and take turns and contribute to those traps ticking and blowing up on you. You're just going to have to waste that first turn on a basic. So sorry for you. Yeah, tough times. All right, next ability is, Exile Ezra's Daring Advance. It just helps this hit wallop. It's already really lethal, but this is just even more so. Let's check it out. For each so this can hit up to 3 times. So for each critical hit scored, deal 20% bonus damage based on the target's max health, which can't be evaded, and inflict buff immunity, healing immunity, and offense down for 2 turns, which can't be copied, dispelled, or resisted, and then reduce the cooldown of Daring Advance by 1. So this is a 3-round cooldown ability reduced to 2. That's just happening regardless. So this thing is coming back fast. This up to 60% bonus damage based on the target's max health is generally saying that, yeah, if you don't have a tank, you don't have your weak characters under stealth, something, if he gets to have a square look at him, he can one-shot him. Easy. And then if it's, especially if it's a high health character, which is why tanks aren't safe either. Tanks can get it. All right? it's a tough time. All right, next skill is, yes, this is Marin's Last of the Night Sisters. This is what allows her to take on Jabba. That's pretty much it. I mean, you can take on other teams, like a Finzori team, but that's a much lesser matchup, right? Seasons come, seasons go. The reliability of the Night Sister counter is generally intact, but you need to have this Omicron applied. All right, CX2's Omicron here. This is a 3 versus 3 only one. It's called You Chose the Wrong Side. Let's cover that one real quick, because I'm not even fully remembering it, but the extra health is a big deal. All right, while in 3 versus 3 Grand Arenas, Empire allies gain 100% max health. And remember, you're wanting to set Lord Vader Oppo CX2 just for the interrelated kits if you're going to set this as a 3 versus 3 team. So these will always be together. 100% max health is ridiculous for that team composition, so good times. If all allies at the start of battle are Darkside Clone Troopers and or Lord Vader, all allies gain 50% offense, and the first time they fall below 50% health, they recover 100% health and gain 30% bonus protection for 2 turns. Whenever any stacks of damage over time are dispelled on the enemy, they gain a stack of damage over time, which can't be dispelled, evaded, or resisted until the end of battle. So this right here is just doom to stuff like JML. It's not that JML can't win, but this is, if your strategy relied on being able to cleanse dots so that you could go about gaining turn meter, yeah, good luck in 3 versus 3 against this. Okay, JML's probably not 3 versus 3. Additionally, if you were inclined to use Imperial Troopers, something like that, to clean this up in a situation, anything like that, as soon as you try to cleanse dots off, you're punished. It's over. And then last here, if Oppo is active, CX2 is immune to taunt effects, so you can't be marked and can't be targeted during enemy turns. So you can't be marked or death marked, now that I think about it, and can't be targeted so long as Oppo is active, which is why, if you're using a non-galactic legend counter against Lord Vader, you need to kill Lord Vader before you can kill Oppo, before you can kill CX2. That's why so many people commit a galactic legend against it, just so that you can blow up Oppo first. You can't have CX2 being untargetable and all that mess. Good one. All right, next. See here. Kanan's Legacy. Yes, this is what accelerates Exile Ezra towards dropping Exile off of himself. He gains 25 stacks of Purgle Migration. He needs to hit 50 before he can shake his own Exile. It also gives backup plan to all Spectre allies. So that is the revive, right? I think they keep that locked buff for 2 turns and then it expires. But if they die inside of that 2-turn window, they're revived. It's bad. It's a tough thing to negotiate. All right, next ability is Ben Solo's Obscured. So this makes the ability do true damage, I want to say, and then unresistible healing immunity for 2 turns, 4 turns, something ridiculous like that. Okay? When this ability is used, Ben Solo's cooldowns are reduced by 1. So this is not the best value part of this skill, right? Because I think the AI is going to have him use this ability first. So, But on his second use of it, you get something back, right? Because his first turn is this, then the big hit special. Anyway, if Galactic Legend Ray is in the allied leader slot, this attack instead deals true damage, it otherwise does special, and inflicts healing immunity for 4 turns, which can't be copied, dispelled, evaded, or resisted. This helps if you're controlling the fight against going things like AMK. You might even hazard something like Exile Ezra. I think Daggers talked about having some success doing that. Okay, next ability is Boundless Force Throw from Starkiller. This ability already can't be evaded, but you get a bunch of extra stuff. While unleashed, dispel all debuffs on all allies, so it's an AoE cleanse, and the buff immunity and healing immunity from this ability cannot be copied, dispelled, or resisted. That buff immunity, healing immunity can help you later in the fight. Absolutely. Classically, this is really good against RJT, who's otherwise really tough to put a lockdown on later in a fight if she's under Galactic Legend Ray. All right, next skill. There's more of us. Yeah, this is Zori. This is her unique. Resistance Hero Finn, Finn, Zori, and Bros, their stock has fallen. They're not as powerful as they have been in some more recent Datacron metas, but still an effective team. Still can be used to punch up. Fatal's still running around out there using this to punch up into the likes of Galactic Legend Ray. It can be used to clean up a variety of GLs in situations that other teams just cannot even think about doing. So it still maintains some importance despite having, reduced in value somewhat. Next skill is What Do I Sacrifice? This is, again, a special ability for Luthen Rail. This is the one that gives bonus offense to Rebel Fighter allies. It also immunizes them from turn meter reduction for a turn, and also allows them to ignore taunt on their next attack. Powerful. This is part of the combined kit on Luthen. I do think you need at least these two Omicrons to do something like a Mon Mothma punch-up into Galactic Legend Leia. Something like that. All right, next up is Scorch. Yes, the new Darkside clone tank for Lord Vader. It's a ton of stats for him, but it also gives some benefits to the team. So, while in Grand Arenas, Scorch gains 50% max health, max protection, and tenacity. Whenever he loses taunt, all Darkside Clone Trooper allies recover 15% health and protection, himself included. It didn't say all other. Whenever he gains taunt, he dispels all debuffs on himself, and all other Darkside Clone Trooper allies gain 10% turn meter. So I kind of weirdly read that. Whenever he gains taunt, he dispels debuffs on himself, and all other Darkside Clone Trooper allies gain 10% turn meter. That's the way to read that. All right, whenever he uses Entrenched, which is the ability that gives him the taunt, also gives him stacks of Bulwark, he gains additional 5 stacks of Bulwark. And the first time each other non-Galactic Legend Empire ally, so just not Lord Vader, is reduced to 50% health, Scorch taunts for 2 turns, and that ally recovers 100% health and protection. Under Lord Vader's leadership, it's all going to be health, but whatever, you get a full life from him. So this does a lot for him, and I think for the team. Next one is Suspended Doctorate. Yes, Dr. Afra's leadership. I want to say her Omicrons are 5 vs 5, whereas her murder droids are only 3 vs 3. So yeah, while in 5 vs 5, Darkside Droid and Darkside Scoundrel allies have plus 50% critical avoidance, which is nice, and 30 speed. Afra has plus 50% potency. This is a huge driver for landing her AoE doubt, for giving her a lot more bulk, because at the start of battle, she's going to be having bonus health and protection based on her potency, so bulking her up. And then whenever a Darkside Droid or Scoundrel ally inflicts a debuff on an enemy, they gain 10% turn meter, limit once per turn. While enemies are debuffed, they have minus 20% tenacity, which is great, not only for Afra, but you've got at least her 2 murder droids have a host of debuffs of their own. Usually the last couple allies you throw in have that as well. So minus 20% tenacity to all enemies is something we can all get behind. Next one is, yes, Morgan Elsbeth's, what is that? Let None Pass. So the Great Mother's team stock is incredibly high these days, able to take on a Galactic Legend Ahsoka Tano, Datacron dependent, with or without Exile Ezra. So incredibly powerful team, and this ability is part of the combo that makes it sing. I don't know that this is essential to being able to pull off that counter, but it might be. It just might be, because hear this. While in Grand Arenas, stagger target enemy for 2 turns, and expose all enemies, and inflict them with buff immunity for 2 turns. If target enemy is inflicted with defense down, which happens from a variety of sources, Morgan Elsbeth has a unique that does it as well, but Night Sister allies deal an additional 5% damage, and the cooldown of their abilities is decreased by 1. All Night Sister allies gain Frenzy for 1 turn and protection up 50% for 2 turns. I actually think, now that I stop and think about it, the Frenzy alone makes this really important for that Great Mothers into Ahsoka Tano counter. So yeah, this is a great skill right now. It didn't used to be as good. I think I had it rated maybe a little bit lower previously, but I'm a fan, big fan. Okay, next one is Jocasta News Jedi Archivist. Yes, we only recently got the full Jedi Vanguard team under Jedi Master Mace Windu. So Jocasta is really just now coming into her own. What you get from this ability is while in Grand Arenas, Jocasta Nu has plus 100% counter chance and is immune to ability block. This part is really important for her because on her first turn, she'll use her first special, which accelerates her a huge part of the way towards transforming into rifle form. You need her to not be ability blocked to be able to use that special. And then the counter chance is nice because once she's in her rifle form, her basic stacks her siphon. So if you want to keep hitting her, carelessly with AoE, she's going to counter, which over the course of the fight also does significant damage, but is just giving her free siphon, and that's just not good for you. Next in this skill says that whenever a Jedi Vanguard ally uses any ability, reduce the cooldown of It Does Not Exist by 1. That's the ability that transforms her into rifle form. So it's just helping accelerate her to that next part of the fight where she's seriously nasty. It's a good skill just for that as well. Whenever she is stunned, gain Deflective Ward, which can't be dispelled until she receives damage. I want to say that's defined from Galactic Legend Ahsoka Tano's kit or General Syndulla's, but I want to say it's the buff that reduces the damage of the next attack at you down to 1. Nice, because she is a priority target. Enemies are going to be coming at her, so nice to be able to punish that. Okay. Next one is, yes, the new Fugitive Omegas. Learn by watching. This gives a pretty interesting bonus. It's a decent look here. While in Grand Arenas, if there are no GL Galactic Legends on the board at all, and all allies are Bad Batch, whenever an ally is damaged by Expose or by an enemy with bonus protection, all enemies receive damage equal to 1% of their max health for each stack of target practice on all allies. And the way this works is target practice will stack up pretty quickly, but it's not something that you get a lot of value out of early in the fight. Later in the fight, this can be serious. This damage can't be evaded and can't defeat enemies. Stealth allies are immune to damage over time and plague. Enemies they defeat can't be revived, and they take a bonus turn whenever they are stunned or another ally falls below 100% health. So this last clause about how they get these bonus turns is something that really motivates Fatal to experiment with this team on offense, taking on Galactic Legends. Because if you set up the condition just right, you're taking a lot of turns before they're interacting with you at all. And then, yeah, immunizing you to damage over time and plague means that certain lesser counters need not apply at all, right? Good value for one Omicron. All right, next skill, super fun one, Mission's Guardian. Yes, at last, Mission and Zalbar have finally gotten their due. I was really excited when they put this one out. This thing is really strongly performing in 3 versus 3. It is actually active in 3s and 5s, but it is certainly much better in 3s than in 5s. I want to cover this though. While in Grand Arenas, this is whether it's 3v3 or 5v5. Zalbar gains Retribution and Taunts for 1 turn at the start of battle, at the start of his turn, and whenever he loses Retribution or Taunt, which is going to be all the time. Whenever he attacks out of turn, inflict a stack of damage over time for 2 turns on all enemies, which can't be evaded or resisted, and also casually tucked in at the end. Enemies can't gain defense up or stealth. So you can just set this on a team and know that if they're relying on a counter, like you know that they're going to take Galactic Legend Leia against you, and Leia wants to tuck Drogon under stealth. Too bad. That won't be happening today. So you've got this damage over time thing, which is okay, but it can help. Enemies can't gain defense up or stealth is an incredible effect. And then at the very least, this character is like basically another free L337. When have you told yourself that it's like, man, I really wish I had another light side tank with pre-taunt and then refreshing taunt besides? This is your man. So, while in 5 vs 5 Grand Arenas, this does a whole bunch of stuff that buffs up the what do you call it? The Carthonasi team. It's okay. I've seen that it stomps stuff like General Skywalker. Situationally, depending on Datacrons, it might be able to do more in 5 versus 5. But the fact is, the sad fact is, the 5 versus 5 meta, certainly at the top of the game, is full of so many better teams that you're usually able to set a defense that this actually is not going to be able to take on. Or even worse, you might just have so many good teams that you have a great defense down, and then enough great teams on offense besides where this would really never need to come up. So it does a whole bunch of stuff. I'm not going to read off everything here, but it's decent. It's just not it's not good enough to earn a place to be frequently used at the top of the game in 5 versus 5. All right, while in 3 versus 3 Grand Arenas, however, if Darth Revan and Mission Bao are allies and there is no enemy galactic legend, man, Zalbar and Mission gain the Sith Empire tag until the end of battle, therefore are gaining all of the benefits, from being Sith Empire under Darth Revan's leadership. Mission gains a bonus turn at the start of battle. Until the start of that turn, she can't be targeted by enemies. At the start of that turn, she is instantly defeated and grants her crit chance, crit damage, offense, and speed to Zalbar and Darth Revan, in addition to their own, until the end of battle. These effects persist through her own defeat, and they add that because usually effects that are granted by a unique die when the character dies. So this protects that, and then Zalbar and Darth Revan gain guard, from Chewbacca's kit, immunizing them to, I want to say, stun and daze? Something like that. Once per turn, Darth Revan assists whenever Zalbar uses an ability, so he functions in the same way that Mission would otherwise assist him. This is incredible. This Omicron allows DRZ, which is what I call this team, to punch up into something like Great Mothers on defense. This is one of the biggest threats to actually posting Great Mothers. It's a super powerful team, offensively, defensively, but the threat of this Omicron being on your opponent's roster might make you think twice to place a team so powerful as Great Mothers, and then just, have this take it out. Like, it depends on what your strategy is, because they do sacrifice their mission, so this is generally a fairly low banner counter, but it is a cudgel. They're coming through. The matchups that you're choosing to take on with this Omicron, you're going to be great. And then, you shut off this whole clause by taking an enemy galactic legend against it, and that's another choice that you're forcing upon your opponent. Is it so dangerous that I don't attempt a non-GL counter, or am I just going to throw one in and make sure it goes down? It's a great Omi. Okay, next one from here. Yes, of course. So Qui-Gon Jinn's agility training. Qui-Gon Jinn's stock continues to fall, both in 5 versus 5 and 3 versus 3. It's still useful as a cudgel on offense. You know that you're going to be bleeding banners, but if you're short on options, you can still absolutely punch through with him on attack. Otherwise, on defense, he's been such a solved factor for so long that most opponents are able to negotiate him cleanly. You still might get the odd hold from time to time, but I really wouldn't count on it the same way that I used to. All right, that's just good business from Hondo. That is what allows him to stack and fly off the handle, right? Let's review that real quick. So while in Grand Arenas, Hondo starts the encounter with 25% turn meter for each other mercenary, scoundrel, or smuggler ally. So they tweak that so that he fits in now with mercenaries. I expect he'll probably also get a tweak for pirate in the end, something like that, because pirates are the new faction that they've added. Anyway, if there is an enemy with the captive debuff at the start of Hondo's turn, Hondo gains an additional 15% crit chance, crit damage, and defense penetration per turn, stacking max 150%, and 3 speed, stacking max 30%. So this all these offensive stats and the speed, and then of course his preload, right? That's what allows him to get out there and get that captive out really early in the fight. That's active in 3 versus 3 or 5 versus 5. And I expect him to continue to be better. I mean, this is a great Omi that if you're placing it on any one of the teams where he's eligible, he's at least blocking out something like Wampa. And Hondo in Grand Arenas can actually do something like take on Sith Eternal. No joke. So situationally really strong. Next ability is Rebel Assault from Admiral Radis. Yeah, this is what makes you explode, right? Let's take a look at that real quick. I'm not using Radis as much as I used to, but it is still a really good Omicron. While in Grand Arenas, Rogue One allies gain 40% max protection. At the start of battle, all Rogue One allies gain Spark of Rebellion for 3 turns. So that's that buff that he puts out. It gives a bunch of great stats, great effects just by having it. But when that Spark of Rebellion is dispelled from an ally, they gain crit chance up, crit damage up, defense up, health up, offense up, potency up, and protection up 20% for 2 turns. So it's a huge incentive for your opponents to strip that Spark of the Rebellion buff off of you. I want to say it's not something that you're able to refresh on the team very often. So when they do end up dispelling you, you punish them and gain all these buffs. That'll help you sustain yourself as you ramp up his stacks and try to hit that 100 counter so you can pop hope. It contributes significantly to your ability to stick around. And then, of course, yeah, the offense up is part of the true damage from hope as well. So, yeah, if you've got that at the right time, big boost. Next is Iden Versio with exactly as planned. Iden, like Radis, is a character that I don't get a ton of use out of these days, but I can't deny that it's still a pretty great skill. While in Grand Arenas, at the start of battle, if no other allies have the leader tag, Imperial Trooper allies also gain 35% max health and protection, which is nice. But then, whenever an enemy attacks out of turn, Imperial Trooper allies recover 20% health and protection and gain 10% turn meter, which classically allows this team to stomp stuff like CLS, Mon Mothma, all these teams that like to attack out of turn. You can punish with that. Good stuff. Next skill is Dash, Rendar's leadership that is prepared for anything, and that just grants prepared to all his allies at the start of battle. So if you're running that prepared scoundrel team, I want to say, no, wait, it's not only at the start of battle, it's also whenever they lose it, they gain it. So full time under his lead, his people are going to be having. While in Grand Arenas, if an ally loses prepared, they gain prepared. So you get the prepared at the start of battle from the base skill, but you're going to be steady keeping it under that leadership. All right, next up is Wampa's Cornered Beast. This is what allows Wampa to one-verse a team. There aren't a lot of situations at the top of the game these days where Wampa can do big things in 3v3, let alone 5v5, but having this Omicron, at the very least, still sets a floor for your opponent. If your opponent checks your roster and sees that you have it, they've got to be thinking, I really would like to set a defense that just doesn't serve you up a free, super banner kill, right? Next is Jocasta. This is her special one. Quiet. I actually have to look at this one, but it's pretty decent. So, yes, while in Grand Arenas, if all allies are Jedi Vanguard, and she is in her rifle form, she dispels all debuffs on all allies when she casts this, and then sets the target enemy's max health to 65, excluding Galactic Legends and raid bosses, until the start of their turn. So, this is really powerful in the hands of the player. It's not as great for the AI to use because the AI will use it maybe on somebody that's a priority target, but if they have high turn meter, they start their turn and shake off that effect that reduced their max health to 65. So ideally, in the hands of the player, you're going after a high priority target that also has low turn meter, or at least lower turn meter than your other attackers, because then you can close in on them and take advantage of that 65 health they've got until they get their next turn. All right. After this one is Asajj Ventress's Rampage. I actually lost this one off the last Omicron tier list. I didn't have her icon up here. I feel bad about it, but we've got her on the chart now. We've got her properly ranked. And for the most part, I think that this Omicron shines when you're doing the Night Sister counter versus Jabba, because the damage ramping granted by that Omicron is significant when you're calling her back, from the dead, and she's striking, gaining stats that actually persist for when she's brought back from the dead on another basic attack in future turns. Otherwise, yeah, more damage for doing what you're otherwise doing with her already is pretty good. Next up is Tools of My Enemy from Luthen Rail. This is his basic. It is the least important of the three, but it's still nice because it's granting him stacking speed. I want to say up to 100 more every time he's using it. It's just a good time to have. I think that's only happened on his own turn with the speed stack, right? During Luthen's turn, he gains 25 speed, max 100 until the end of the encounter, and the target enemy has their defense reduced by 30% until the next time Luthen uses his basic ability or until he is defeated. So you think about that. You use your specials in the first couple of turns, fine, but then with this basic, hopefully you're able to hit a priority target, and then you're trying not to really use your basic against anybody else, or ideally not using your basic until that priority target is dead. They're just going to keep having that minus 30% defense. Okay, I do believe that we've got one last one here. It's in my head. This is the new Bad Batch Crosshair. Pull this up. His ability. And yeah, it is, I think, certainly less important than Fugitive Omegas, but it's still pretty good. While in Grand Arenas, and there are no Galactic Legends present whatsoever, so you can just shut this off with that, right? Whenever Crosshair Scarred is inflicted with a debuff, he dispels it and gains 5% offense stacking, maximum of 100, for one turn. Whenever a Bad Batch ally with target practice uses a special ability, Crosshair Scarred assists. So why this is so good is that for the early part of the game, his attacks are not connecting very often because of this shaken effect that he starts the battle with and then is reducing. And then once he's free of it, he's kicked off. He's a serious problem. But until that point, your opponents might say, okay, if I can't stop him, if he's not doing much damage, I don't want him to start ramping to the point where he can and getting rid of these stacks of shaken. So I'm going to use ability block, or I'm going to shock him so he can't gain turn meter. I'm going to debuff him somehow. So this punishes that. He's going to gain offense, shake the debuffs, and continue to do stuff, right? And then whenever a Bad Batch ally with target practice, which will be just most of the time, maybe not the first turn, but most of the turns thereafter, whenever they're using a special Crosshair assist, when he's assisting, he's going to be reducing his stacks of shaken, further contributing towards him freeing himself up and getting to the big damage state. So, nice skill. All right, that wraps up the B tier. So again, yes, how did we have that broken down? Yeah, the B tier was elevating Omicrons. All right, now we're in the C tier. We're down to just the okay mods now, right? Or the Omicrons now. So first up is the Lost Commander from Krex. Now, Krex himself, his stock has risen. He is a really good character. Whether you're using him with Galactic Legend Leia, you're using him with Phoenix, you're using him with Saw, with Mon Mothma. He fits in a lot of places and does great stuff. This Omicron, though, is just okay these days. While in Grand Arenas, whether it's 3s or 5s, Rex gains 30% crit damage and an additional 60% max health and 25 speed. Solid. It's really nice. In 5 vs 5, this is the ability that kicks off Phoenix. Phoenix is still a solid counter to stuff like Reva on defense, but most people these days aren't setting Reva a lot. Or if they are, they're doing something funky where it's a mixed up team with Malicos and other stuff like that to throw you off. Otherwise, I'm not finding a lot of value in 5 vs 5 for this part of the Omicron, right? And then famously in 3 vs 3, this is great with like Rex 5s, right? For a certain part of the game, maybe a middle part of the game, this could be a really difficult team to take on, but there's no place in it on my board, even as wide as a Kyber 1 board is in 3 vs 3. Really not a place for this team to be down because it's still dealt with pretty easily. I want to say something like Malgus Solo stomps it. Something like that. Like, it doesn't feel good. If you're setting this down with the intention of having stacking armor shred and all these problems, and then somebody just 59s it, you're not going to be satisfied. Next up is Night Trooper with Inevitable End. This is a good one. I really love that team. All right, so while in Grand Arenas, Night Trooper has plus 100% max health and plus 35 speed. That's why I really like where you can get away with it using primaries. Like if you were going to use an offense primary somewhere, use a health primary instead with a high offense secondary. Because man, can you just take huge advantage of this and just make him absolutely giga. It's tough to kill. And then the other 35 speed is just a huge value for this guy because he's wrapping around. He's gaining turn meter, and the more turns he takes, the worse it is for all of the enemies. Anyway, furthermore, Night Trooper is immune to turn meter reduction. If the ally in the leader slot is Imperial Remnant, so if you're using with DTMG, inflict a stack of Blight until the end of the encounter with DTMG and or Enoch, I guess, leader. Inflict a stack of Blight until the end of the encounter at the start of each Imperial Remnant ally's turn to a random enemy. Whenever an enemy is inflicted with Blight this way, reduce the cooldown of Share My Suffering by 1, which is his second special. Inflicts Blight, does serious damage, removes turn meter, stuns, inflicts crit damage down on all enemies. So, and it's on a 4-round cooldown, so accelerating that is nice, in addition to all of those other passive benefits. All right, then, Grand Moff Tarkin. Yes. Tighten the Grip. This is a fun one. This is a very recent Omicron, and I'm excited because Tarkin's just been disused for so long. Why can I not see him? There he is. All right, while in 3 vs 3. So yes, this is just another 3 vs 3 only Omicron, but I think you'll agree it's pretty good. And the way you'll see, this kit is meant to use the other 2 dark side clones that you're generally not using with Lord Vader in 3 vs 3. So that's going to be your Scorch and your Disguise Clone Trooper. All right, while in 3 vs 3, and if all other allies are dark side clone troopers, at the start of the encounter, allied dark side clone trooper supports, like DCT, stealth for 2 turns. Dark side clone trooper tanks, like Scorch, gain protection up 50% for 2 turns, which can't be dispelled, and Scorch gains 5 stacks of bulwark. Whenever a dark side clone trooper ally uses a special ability, Tarkin assists. That's nice. Nice, because he's stacking potency on his basic. And that contributes to the damage of ultimate firepower. All right. Whenever an enemy evades or resists a debuff from a dark side clone trooper ally, Tarkin gains 5% turn meter and recovers 10% health. You're generally not stacking potency on either Scorch or DCT. DCT has like an unresistible thing, but like Scorch has an AoE attempt to daze that can very easily just be resisted, so you'll get value there. And then whenever Intimidation Tactics is used, which is Tarkin's third ability, dispel buffs on all enemies and daze them for 2 turns. Whenever Ultimate Firepower is used, inflict fear on all enemies for 1 turn. There's no other condition. You don't have to kill anybody. Nothing else needs to be met. When you click the button, inflict fear on all enemies for 1 turn, which can't be copied, dispelled, or resisted. And also, just for a little sugar cube on top, enemies can't be revived. So this is at the very least like an anti-Tusken team in 3 vs 3 that you can expect will consistently work. They buffed the crap out of that. I'm here for it. I'm glad to see the old man doing stuff. Okay, naturally next we've got what's the name? Strength in Numbers, the unique from Tusken Raider. This is what allows the Tusken trio, Chieftain, Warrior, Raider, to be one of the best 3 vs 3 teams. You've got that respawning threat now from the original Raider and the summoned Raider. There's stacking speed and crit damage when you're killing Tusken allies, stuff like that. Like a whole bunch tucked into the effect. Nasty business. Still, it's just okay these days because people expect it in 3 vs 3, so they're mostly planning for it, but it is still a stalwart. It was the first 3 vs 3 Omicron I picked up, and it would still be among my top choices today. All right, after that is Bo-Katan Kryze's For Mandalore. So I believe this is what allows her to ignore taunt. When you're using, when you have this ability, when you have this Omicron, you're able to, on her first turn, if she's not ability blocked or something like that, you can ignore taunt, target the priority target, and then use her third, which is going to call a mass assist from the enemies. It's not a good time. What's that say here? While in Grand Arenas, BKM is immune to daze, which is nice. If all allies were light side Mandalorian at the start of battle, Bo-Katan ignores taunt effects, and whenever an ally is defeated for the first time, she gains 20% of their max health and offense, stacking until the end of battle. This is one of the reasons why I believe I still have my Paz Vizsla set up with health primaries. A lot of folks set him up with protection, because strictly speaking, that's probably a better value to him as an individual tank, but he gains protection up from his third ability, so health benefits there. And then, of course, him being the likeliest to die for any of the places where I might use BKM, she'll gain that much health, and some offense besides. You actually do have some offense tucked into his kit to take advantage of his own true damage. So, pretty good ability. All right. Next one is, yes, single trooper aerial platform. This is Staps Omicron, and it gives him a bonus turn. I want to say it gives him a bonus turn at battle start, and then a bonus turn whenever an enemy takes their first turn. So it's just an incredible momentum gain for the General Grievous team. General Grievous is a middling team these days. He can occasionally punch up into something interesting. There's rarely a Datacron meta, something where he might take on Galactic Legend Leia, for example. It's not always able to do cool stuff, but when it can do cool stuff, you really need to have this Omicron. The team really just lacking punch without it comparatively. So there you go. All right, next up is Specialized in Torture. This is the 3 versus 3 Omicron for 000. In a couple recent Datacron metas, this has been a very powerful ability. You're able to hold up against BKM. You're setting this with like Afra 000 and then Chrysanthemum with a certain Datacron that's available right now. You're usually setting it with BT1, but the 000 Omicron shined recently. Let's see why on this special. While in 3 vs 3 Grand Arenas, Torture lasts 2 turns instead of 1. Nice. And then if BT1 is an active ally, BT1 and 000 recover 20% health and protection. If this ability defeats an enemy, all Darkside allies gain 10% offense stacking for the rest of the encounter, doubled for Darkside droids. So it's a decently hard-hitting skill. The Torture lasting for 2 turns is heinous. That is not something that you want to deal with. And yes, having that Torture last 1 turn extra indeed is all the difference in being able to prevent a couple of counters. Like, I want to say there's been recently a Darth Sidious Datacron meta where you could probably take on the Afra team if not for that Omicron. All right. Next one is Darth Malgus's deprived senses. This is making his debuffs immune to resistance and also does bonus true damage when you're targeting a shocked enemy. Debuffs inflicted by this ability can't be resisted, which is nice. And Sith Empire allies gain critical chance up for 2 turns. If the target was already shocked, deal true damage to all other enemies, and Malgus gains 50% turn meter, which can hasten him coming back to the next dunk, right? I was forgetting how cool this first part is. Debuffs inflicted by this ability can't be resisted is so powerful because of blind and shock. Now, being able to put down an unresistible blind and shock is clutch at will. So, pretty good. Okay, next one. That is going to be Dr. Afra's Droid Savant. So now we're back talking about another 5 versus 5 only Omicron, right? But it says the first time a non-separatist Darkside droid or Darkside scoundrel ally falls below 20% health, they gain DI for 1 turn, damage immunity. Whenever a Darkside droid is defeated, they inflict damage over time on all enemies for 2 turns. They inflict an additional damage over time for 2 turns for each relic level on that character. It's nice. I'm usually not thinking so much about the dots, but the DI is pretty nice. And then this separate clause says Afra, non-separatist Darkside droids, Darkside scoundrels, and Chrysanthemum are immune to ability block and healing immunity. So whatever you're going to do, this at least shuts off those 2 debuffs. Immunities are always powerful, but it's a nice to have. It's okay in 5 versus 5. I like it. I've had it for a long time, but there's certainly a lot of other Omicrons I'd sooner take ahead of it. All right, sip of water here. All right, the last of Aphra's Omicrons here is Rogue Archaeology. And again, a 5 vs 5 only one that says deal bonus damage to target enemy equal to 50% of Aphra's potency. This can be really serious damage. Most folks are stacking her up in a full, 6 potency mods. As much potency as you can pack on. You're usually running a Datacron with potency where available. So this can do a lot of lives. And then, yes, let's see. Yeah, you deal bonus damage to target enemy equal to 50% of Aphra's potency. Then you inflict buff immunity, healing immunity, and stagger on target enemy for 2 turns. So, yeah, you might be able to one-shot somebody depending on how much this skill does, but if you don't, you're certainly locking them down and setting the stage for you to finish them off. Okay, now we're back into Ben Solo's kit. This one is redeemed. I believe this is the one that allows all of his attacks to ignore protection. This ability stock has risen in having Rey being able to resist something like Queen Amidala. Queen Amidala is a really powerful team on offense right now, and Ben Solo's attacks being able to ignore protection means that Family Legacy, this enormously powerful skill, doing damage to target enemy, then you're going to do extra true damage to all enemies. Yes, having that ignore protection is pretty bad news. You can take out the squishies on Queen Amidala's team very easily with having that Omicron applied. So it's useful in other cases, but that's the big one that jumps out to me. All right. Next one from here is reinforcements have arrived for Bo-Katan Mandalore. So this is the one that allows her to have that 1-2 punch with BAM. What it says is that, I want to say it says enemies that are unable to follow up on that mass assist to get a bonus turn. It says, light side Mandalorian allies gain an additional 2 stacks of Ancestral Resolve from this ability. So again, helping them ramp, get all that true damage, their defense, max health. If another light side Mandalorian ally wasn't able to assist, they instead gain a bonus turn. This is specifically a call out to BAM. To Beskar Armor Mandalorian, because if you have him on the team and you have him modded to be at least 1 faster than her, then he gets to enter Discipline setup 1 turn ahead. He's ready to start stacking birds. She uses this ability, calls the entire enemy team, your allied team, to mass assist, feeding a whole bunch of birds to BAM, who then, because he wasn't able to assist, gets a bonus turn and then pops off immediately. Now, technically, if another light side Mandalorian ally was stunned, they would get a bonus turn. They wouldn't be able to do, I guess they would get dispelled by the skill, so they would get to act, right? Nice stuff. But yeah, this is the principal call out for BAM. Okay, next skill is Misa Okide from Jar Jar Binks. Let's take a look at this one says, while in Grand Arenas and all allies are Gungans, whenever the shield generator uses Plasma Pulse, its only ability, reset all of Jar Jar's cooldowns. Whenever a Gungan ally is dazed, staggered, or stunned, they dispel it and gain shield up 25% for 2 turns. Just that passive dispel for the allies is probably worth it in itself, but the Plasma Pulse resetting Jar Jar's cooldowns is sneaky good because, as we saw with his middle ability, he's able to decrease all ally cooldowns when you have that Omicron applied. So again, you have that synergy there where this team could just fly and just do laps around you. Nuts. Okay, next one. Ooh. Is Master and Apprentice, the unique from Balin. I had this much higher rated in the last video, but again, it was a different time, and it was the height of Balin's meta. Let's take a look at it, though, because it's okay. So you're gaining all these different effects here from the base part of this unique, depending on the number of stacks of Soldier of Fortune he has. While in Grand Arenas, at the start of his turn, Balin gains the following additional effects, depending on how many stacks of Soldier of Fortune he has. At 45+, whenever Balin is damaged while taunting, he grants a random other mercenary ally speed up for 1 turn if they didn't already have it. At 50 plus stacks, whenever Balin attacks an enemy inflicted with Purge, he reduces their tenacity by 20%, stacking, max 100% till the end of battle. It's kind of, whatever. 55 plus stacks, whenever Balin stuns an enemy, he also increases their cooldowns by 1. I think his only skill that stuns is his second special, so think about that. You know, if you stun them, great. If they also get stunned, they also get their cooldowns increased by 1. Now, you'll be kind of later in the fight when you'll be having something like 55 stacks, I think. But still, it's nice to have. You're increasing their cooldowns by 1 if they're stunned. And then if they're not stunned, because of that other Omicron on him, they'll just lose all their turn meter. So setting up those no-lose conditions. Good stuff. Next ability is Queen Amidala's My Place is with My People. I believe this is her leadership. And yeah, most of these great Grand Arena characters, their leadership's usually top priority to take as an Omicron. Get that unique for her first and come back for this later, because it gives some nice stuff, but I think you'll see nothing that feels like you couldn't make her work without. While in Grand Arenas, and if there are no Galactic Legend allies and all allies are Galactic Republic, whenever an ally uses a special ability, they gain bonuses based on their role. Attackers gain offense up for 2 turns and call another random ally to assist, dealing 20% more damage. Healers and supports gain protection up 50%, stacking, and speed up for 3 turns. Tanks recover 25% health and protection. It's a lot, and it's passive. That's what's really nice about the skill, is that it's just happening in the background. And it is a lot of stats. It's a lot of effects that's getting put out onto the board. It is nice to have, just certainly lower priority than her other 2, I think. All right, next after this one is Captain Drogon, second in command. This one gives him the additional 50% max health and immunity to ability block. Most of the time, I find that with Drogon, I'm using his basic on his first turn anyway. But for the rare occasion where you want to be able to open up with a special on that first turn, yeah. Immunity to ability block. Oh, yeah, and if the ally in the leader slot is a rebel tank, that's the condition to have this immunity to ability block. So that would work with either Galactic Legend Ray or with Saw Gerrera. I want to say technically also Biggs Darklighter. There might be some other lesser choices, but it's kind of mostly like Leia and Saw is what you're thinking about in the modern game. Yeah, the 50% max health on a team where he's usually having some health modding. At the top of the game, people are substituting offense arrows for health arrows and health crosses with high offense secondary so that you're getting more value out of this, just helping protect him from getting one shot or just popped early in the fight. It just leans into that direction. At the start of each of his turns, he also dispels all debuffs from another random ally and recovers 25% health and protection, helping to mitigate you focusing him down, right? At the start of battle, if the ally in the leader slot is a rebel fighter support, whenever Drogon scores a critical hit, all rebel allies gain 10% turn meter. Rebel fighter support. Who's a rebel fighter support gonna be? That's also a leader. Rebel fighter support. You're not a support, right? Oh, wait a minute. So yeah, so Saw isn't a tank, so that is like for Leia and Biggs, I guess. Okay, so that let me read that again, because that call out is specifically for being under Saw. Whenever he scores a critical hit, all rebel allies gain 10% turn meter. Bad news bears. And there have been times where I put Drogon with Saw. Again, most of the time with Leia. Okay, after that is Zam Wessel's Shapeshifter. Yes, it's not an Omicron I get a ton of value out of days, but I still keep my original, Bosk Bounty Hunters team up to snuff for the occasional enemy that might set General Skywalker against me. It's not something I get a ton of value out of these days, but it used to be top notch, and giving out all of those stats and critically, a lot of speed to the bounty hunter allies enables them to do stuff that they weren't otherwise going to be able to do. Next after this one is By the Book, Jocasta News Basic. Check that. So, while in Grand Arenas and she is in her rifle form, on her turn, grant each Jedi Vanguard ally every dispellable buff she has for 1 turn. There are a lot of buffs on this Jedi Vanguard team, so ostensibly this can do a lot. And yeah, This only occurs on her turn, which is not bad. I'm cool with it. All right. Next, after this one, is Chrysanthemum's Champion of the Fighting Pits. This is one that I struggled with ranking because I like this skill a lot. It's, again, a lot of benefit passively. So let's check this out. In Grand Arenas, at the start of battle, Chrysanthemum gains 40% max protection. While he's active, all enemies have minus 30% potency. So one of the biggest predators for Jabba when you set them on defense is going to be Afra, right? Afra BT1, 000, and a couple others. They want to be able to land doubt on your whole team when Afra uses that second special. So you putting out a minus 30% potency aura onto the enemy team might put a dent in what they're trying to do. They have to account for that. If all allies were Hutt Cartel at the start of battle, Chrysanthemum is immune to ability block and cooldown increase, and the first time the ally in the leader slot, excluding himself, falls below 50% health, Chrysanthemum taunts for 2 turns, and the ally in the leader slot recovers 50% protection. So just helps him stick around and do the tanking job for his Hutt Cartel leader, all the better. Immunity to ability block and cooldown increase means that you don't have to have him terribly fast. When he gets his first 2 turns, he's reliably going to be able to get both specials out. So it's a nice thing to have. All right. Next after this is Rose Tico's Valiant Spirit. When you're using the Finn Zori team, you are usually not having Rose in there in 3 vs 3, but there have been times where the combined power of like Finn, Zori, and Rose, both of those Omicrons on that team active, can be a real problem. Let's take a look. While in Grand Arenas, all other Resistance allies also gain 10% offense for each exposed enemy, and they gain 5% turn meter whenever a Resistance ally scores a critical hit. This team is exposing enemies all the time. And if you have them set up properly, it can take some work because both Resistance Hero Finn and Resistance Hero Poe are special damage dealers. So it can be a fairly heavy commitment to make sure that they can actually critically strike. But if you put the effort into having that team set up to do it, like Zori and Finn, they're physical attackers. They're pretty easily made to critically strike. But you can have just so much turn meter gain come out of this. It's insane. This is probably a critical part to a 5 vs 5 Finn Zori team punching up into a galactic legend. The offense is considerable as well. I mean, to say nothing of all that turn meter. Okay, so we talked about 000 earlier. You knew we'd have to come back to BT1. Now we're talking about Homicidal Counterpart. Yeah, this one is, I want to say, some restoration and turn meter. It fits firmly into the nice to have category. Let's check that out. While in 3 vs 3 Grand Arenas, whenever BT1 or 000 defeat an enemy, their cooldowns are refreshed, and they gain 30% turn meter. It's a nice momentum skill. For the most part in 3 vs 3, I'm finding my offensive uses of Afra are such that I'm not really needing this cooldown refresh to win. It's a win harder ability. It's because you're only getting this effect when you defeat an enemy. So if I've already defeated an enemy here, me getting my cooldowns refreshed and 30% turn meter, it's nice, but I think the fight's firmly on my side at this point already. So it's certainly a lesser priority than 000, I would say, if you had to pick. All right, next is Korriban's Legacy from Darth Malgus. This is passive doubt going out onto the enemy team. I want to say this one gets value only in 5 vs 5. Let's take a look. While in Grand Arenas, if all allies were Sith at the start of battle, instead, the first time each turn doubt is dispelled on an enemy, all other enemies that didn't already have it are inflicted with doubt for 2 turns at the end of that turn, which can't be resisted. So the base part of this effect would have the doubt spread onto +2 characters. All right, so that's the maximum value you could get in 3 vs 3. However, with this applied, doubt will be spread onto all other enemies in 5 vs 5. So you're giving a lot more value to that doubt maturing into fear, maturing into worse things, right? So, good one. Last in this tier is Darth Talon's Sith Cruelty. And yeah, this one is pretty poor, guys. Like, it's great for... I mean, this ability is great just for the base effect, right? The health, offense, speed, nice stuff. But while in Grand Arenas, you get bonus effects here. If target enemy is inflicted with Isolate from Darth Treya or Pain from Darth Scion, Darth Talon's attacks gain additional effects. Whenever Darth Talon defeats an enemy, all other Sith allies gain 5% max protection and 5% offense for each stack of Loyal Hand on her. So that's nice, but that again feels like a win harder to me. If she specifically just defeated an enemy, I feel like we've got momentum on our side already. So giving all other allies max protection and offense, it's nice, but it's gravy on a smothered steak already. I'm not worried about it. So yes, if she's attacking an enemy that has Isolate, Darth Talon's attacks lower the cooldown of Dark Frenzy by 1. That's her big slappy hit that sets her off with Frenzy, allows her to chain multiple attacks. It's bad. It's bad to trigger. Gain 2 stacks of Loyal Hand for free just by hitting a target that has Isolate. If she hits a target with Pain, Dark Frenzy inflicts buff immunity on all enemies for 2 turns. That's horrible. Darth Talon's attacks recover all allies' health equal to 50% of the damage dealt, doubled for allied Darth Scion. Gain plus 20 speed for the rest of the encounter, stacking maximum of 200, and 1 stack of Loyal Hand, maximum of 20. So, yeah. I mean, if the enemy especially has Pain, wow, does she gain a lot of great offensive benefit and help sustain Scion. It's okay. It's a pretty okay cron, but again, the main threat of the Treya team is being able to have Savage, tank, and endure. Treya's mechanics, pumping everybody up, punishing attacks out of turn, just buying time for Nihilus to start knocking people out. Talon is really good as a threat for a couple specific matchups. The first one jumping to mind being like a Sith Eternal solo. This ability might gain some real value in that sort of situation. But otherwise, you can safely rate it pretty low. All right, and that concludes the C tier. Now, we are now in the D tier. These are the worst Omicrons in the game. It's not that they're all worthless. It's that their value is so inconsistent or just poor that you really don't need to think about them at all. And if you do, you can worry about them super, super late. Now, this one kind of stung. Leading off the tier is one of Reva's uniques. And I used to have this one rated a good bit higher. But quite frankly, over time, it just hasn't really proven to be that hot. While in Grand Arenas, this is driven by revenge, by the way. While in Grand Arenas, whenever Third Sister is revived from hatred, the cooldown of Unyielding Onslaught is refreshed, which is her first special that inflicts armor shred. It's nice. But the cooldown is refreshed, and she gains 100% offense until her next attack, and ignores taunt effects for 1 turn. So technically speaking, you can use any attack when you have that 100% offense and ignore taunt. You don't have to use Unyielding Onslaught, but you do have that cooldown refreshed. So you could choose to ignore taunt and use Reckless Sweep, call Seventh Sister for an extra assist onto priority target, whatever. You can choose how you'd want to use that ignore taunt for the 1 turn, but it depends on Reva dying to get any value at all, right? Whenever Third Sister is revived from hatred. Okay, so she has to be 1 shot in the first place. Now, if you're taking this team into JMK Cat, you'll get quick early value from this, and this might actually be helpful to you. But for most fights where you're using Reva, I'm actually not depending on her to die. I'm trying to actively avoid it for the most part. So with that in mind, I'm not getting a lot of value out of that Omicron. It's mostly a dud. All right. Next is Admiral Akbar and Princess Leia. These 2 are pretty much tied at the hip because there are occasionally Datacron metas that favor this team existing. The composition, aside from them, varies, but you're usually just trying to create a turn meter loop that these 2 can allow, but it's easily countered by any number of low-level teams. And it's not that great when you don't have a super tailored Datacron meta. So it's only very rare that this team could shine. For that reason, it's just very low. Chief Chirpa now with simple tactics. Yes, Ewoks are cool. They're just not cool enough. if you ever have to clean up a solo General Grievous, they're your man. You know, they can get it done. But otherwise, this team has just fallen off really hard. Like the power creep, the evolution of this game has pushed that team almost off the radar. Next up is First Order TIE Pilots Keen Eye. So this is one of the first GAC Omicrons that came out of. I don't think it's the first. I want to say Qui-Gon's, but it's one of the earliest ones. And, you know, back in that time when there was only a couple Galactic Legends, this was a really good value Omicron. It gave you had your main slacker First Order team, but then you could have a second team led by Hux or even by crew. In which case, if you're running like a second First Order team, offense or defense, and you're not going to have Slacker in there, then this Omicron really boosted that up, made it very good. Nevertheless, that time is long since passed. It is exceedingly rare that I ever think about using this. Tusken Chieftains Omicron is nomadic people, and this is the one that gives you benefits and really any reason at all to throw Dadbod Boba into this team in 3 versus 3. The problem here is that the best team for Tuskens in 3 versus 3, indisputably, is Tusken Chieftain, Warrior, and Raider with the Raider Omicron. And I want to say that the Dadbod, the call out here from Tuskens makes it so that you really can't have the Raider and Dadbod at the same time. At which point, I think it's bad. I don't want to speak out of school. Let me take a look at it real quick. Let's see. While in 3 vs 3 Grand Arenas, Boba Fett, Cyan, and Jango counts as a Tusken ally if there is no character that summons at the start of battle. So quite seriously, you can't have Tusken Raider in here. So that means you're running a tankless Tusken team in 3 vs 3. Maybe something you might situationally consider on offense, but I would never set this version of the team on defense. All right. After that is Director Krennic's immeasurable power. Man, what a dud. They've tried now a couple times. At the time of this recording, there is actually a Datacron specifically calling him out by name, and it still doesn't make him good. This guy is just garbo. The Omicron says, while in Grand Arenas, Krennic gains plus 30% defense, penetration, health, and offense. If Death Trooper is present, he also gains these bonuses. Whenever Krennic attacks, Death Trooper is called to assist, and has his cooldowns reduced by 1. While allied Death Trooper is active, both Krennic and Death Trooper ignore taunt effects. This body of text isn't terrible, but this could easily be part of a more modern character's base unique. It's not enough. This whole guy's kit is not enough. It's almost enough, and they try to prop it up every once in a while with some type of Datacron meta, but it still ultimately doesn't get there. And I wish it would. I think Krennic is a nasty character. And yeah, he deserves to be better represented in this game. All right, last and quite seriously least is Luminara Unduli's Master Healer's Blessing. This ability is almost never useful because it's anti-synergistic with pretty much any Jedi team you might consider to put her in. Take a look. While in Grand Arenas, this is on her special, her main heal, right? It says dispel all debuffs on all allies. Allies gain tenacity up for 2 turns, and Luminara Unduli gains 50 speed for 2 turns. Stacks of healing over time gain from this ability, which would be granted to allies. Stacks of heal over time gain from this ability trigger whenever any healing over time from this ability triggers, limit once per turn, and whenever they do trigger, they also recover 20% protections. Nice. While allies have a stack of heal over time from this ability, they have plus 100% critical avoidance and are immune to turn meter reduction. Whenever a stack of heal over time from this ability is dispelled, reduce the cooldown of this ability by 1. All this sounds great, right? But then, other allies with protection up can't gain these bonuses. And these stacks of heal over time expire on other allies who gain protection up. What Jedi teams? I mean, you don't have to strictly put this character with Jedi, but she's mostly meant to be with Jedi. She's Galactic Republic Jedi, and almost any version of this has somebody that can give that team protection up. So you're pretty much canceling out all this good stuff by putting her on a team that will generally be having protection up available. It's pretty lame. Like Grandmaster Yoda, I want to say Kelleran Beck gives it out. Like there's what do you got? You've got JMK, you've got all these other sources. So truly a disappointment. I know there's a couple players that are occasionally making a clever use out of this, but it's really just a corner case. It's very low reliability to get any value out of this Omicron at all. All right, guys, we've taken it from top to bottom, and this was a significantly longer video than the first one, right? Because a lot more Omicrons, and we went into some more detail on the decisions. But hopefully you've enjoyed. I look forward to all your feedback on this. It may be some time before I put out the next one. Don't hold your breath. You won't make it. But yes, I will keep on doing this periodically when it seems like it's a good fit, when there's been enough change, and then, of course, in a way that doesn't compromise me making the other content you like to see from my channel. So again, appreciate you tuning in. If you like this video, please give it a like. Hit subscribe on my channel to see more. And until next time, it's been real. It's been awesome. It's been real awesome. Take care.